Hey guys, and welcome to Roar 3 Solutions tutorial. We're going to talk about UV mapping again because it's a challenge, it's a pain, everyone deals with it. There are simple ways to do it, there are challenging ways to do it, and just so happens that you need to properly map my Marlin, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So first and foremost, you can always go and find our models on our website, or you can go onto cgtrader.com, look under Roar 3D Solutions, and you'll be able to run across all the models that we offer. So I do a lot with organic models, but I prefer working with the hard vehicle models. It's just a ton of fun. So what I've done here, there are a couple things I have done in particular. So first and foremost, here we go. If I select on the nerve, and all I did was drop a subdivision in, and I look at the nerve, I'll go ahead and activate it so you can see. So it'll subdivide out real clean, real nice. And what I've done is I've done a bunch of weight mapping on little bits and pieces here and there. And that's only for kind of defining some of the areas that I wanted to define. So when I actually go through the final stage of this model, we'll have something that'll look really good. And when you render it out, you'll have something that'll look, organic as well, because that's what we're going for here. So I'll go ahead and get rid of that because we don't need that. I'll also deselect, and we'll look at the model. So what do we have to do to start with? So first and foremost, I actually deleted the UV tag because I want you to understand how to go from the beginning. So let's start with BP UV edit. Now in here, before we can do anything, we're actually going to have to go in and go to the paint setup wizard. Now I'm actually, unbeknownst to most, I've actually shown you how to do this in Cinema 4D because I actually find it's the most, it gives me the best result. And some people are going to laugh at me when I say that, but for me, it has given me the best result because I can manipulate it how I need. So we're going to make sure that the item that we want is selected, say next, and sure, we can go ahead and just calculate it. And all I care about right now is color. I'm not worried about any of this because you can make the textures as big as you want and they will look outstanding. So boom, there we go. So we've set it on there, and what it does, it creates its own color, which we don't really need. So I'll go ahead and get rid of the color. So as we come in here, what I'm going to do is select, and so you have your UV polygon in BP UV edit for texturing. So that's these three guys you're gonna, or at least these two guys you're gonna use a lot of, and I'm gonna show you the workflow of how I kind of go back and forth. And there are probably more slightly efficient ways, but I found some of these ways to be very useful for me, and I do spend a lot of time working in the UV edit. So when I look here at what it's done for me, what a mess. So this is how it has unwrapped the model. So if I just zoom in and look at this, and I can click on any of these with this selected, and it'll show me which map that it's picked, and I can see just a mess. But what you can see is just a mess of things, overlapped UVs, all kinds of problems all over the place. And then you can also see that there's separation, so we literally have holes here. So if I just select this one, for example, so you can see this polygon, and then I want this one, it's not even in the same area. It's just, it's terrible. So what does this mean? It means that when we try and actually paint this, it's gonna look kind of crappy and it's going to be all over the place. So let's try and make this a little bit easier. So I'm going to come back into the standard, and I'm going to select the polygon tool, UL, that gives us our loop tool. And I'm going to start breaking things up on my own to make things a little bit easier. So to probably the easiest way, so it's all about seams, right? So it's about how you want to make each of these parts into a seam, and you have to think about how you would actually paint the model in real life, in reality, if it was physical. So I'm going to select that loop, I'm going to select that loop. I'm going to select that loop, and I'm going to walk you through how to create selections and all that to make life easier. I'm going to select this loop. I'm holding shift every time that I want to reselect a different loop. Now this, again, only works if your topology is clean. So I make everything in quads so it makes life easier. I'm going to select that loop. If you don't do that, for example, you try and use a triangulated model, that's where things get really challenging. I'm going to select this loop, and let's go ahead and select that loop. So all this does is get us kind of started. So we can separate some of these pieces. So I'm going to come in here to select, fill selection. I'm going to hold shift and select you, select you, select you, you, and we'll get you and you. Then I'm going to come in here and I have my set selection tool. I'm going to set selection. I'm going to call this fins. Even though they're not all fins, we're going to call them fins. And then I'm going to select the entire body. Now with this polygon selection tag, I want to hit Control to deselect it, and I want to reselect set selection. We're going to call this body. Now this is going to help you later on, so just keep that in mind. Right now this is kind of probably seems silly, but trust me, this will make your life much easier. So I'm going to go back to the UL to get the loop tool. We're going to come in and let's see here. Let's find a spot that's usable. Say like that little guy. Okay, that kind of gets us there. So it looks like I did have a little whoopsie daisy there on some of the topology because some of them aren't lined up perfectly well. So I'm going to do a little bit of hand selection here. So let's go ahead and select this. Make sure that I get a good selection. There we go. And then from here, I think actually from here, I just want the mouth is what I'm going for. So this is where the mouth kind of ends. There we go. Don't want you. And then once I'm happy with that selection, let's see here. Yeah, I think that'll work. I'm going to go ahead again to my select and fill selection. Select that and select that. And as long as you have the outline of the area, your fill selection works wonderful. It does wonderful things for you to be able to capture the rest of those polygons. And it looks like we missed that, so we'll select that. Great. I'm going to deselect that again. We're going to come back into select and set selection. Now we're going to call this the mouth. Now remember what we just did. So if I come back in here and I say I want the body, I click on the body tag. I'm going to click out to clear it, and I select. That is now selected. So what I have to do, if I want to do this the way I'm doing it, I want to reselect the mouth, deselect, come back into the body, set selection. So with set selection in place, now my body is separated from the mouth. So this is starting to come together. And then what we probably want to also do, so one of the wonderful features of a Marlin in particular is kind of the head area. Some really cool specular that you want to have happen, and there's some things that you look forward to seeing. So if I come in here, we make a lot of models. So there's just to show you, this is a lighthouse rendering. So this is what you see in that lighthouse display. So I basically made a flat projection when I first made this model off of a map or a image I found on the internet, and I applied it to the model. And this is the mess that it turns into. So this is okay if you're just using an image and you want to plaster it on there and you don't care about if things get ugly and distorted like this really ended up getting. But if I look at actual pictures, so I'll pull this up for example. So this beautiful picture, there's some really cool colors in here. And the worst thing you can do is start creating all this really nice coloration, and then you have the seam. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and we're going to kind of unwrap it so that it's just a seam on the bottom of it. So, but to do that to start with, I actually kind of only want half of the model. So I'm going to do the loop tool again. And looks like we're going to have to do a little bit of selection by hand just because of the nature of my model. Apologize about that, and if you're interested in buying this model when it's all said and done, I actually will probably end up cleaning all of that up so that we can do this properly and it will actually be quads. You know, clean topology from the get-go is always the answer to making your model really, really awesome. Alright, so now that we're finally getting somewhere, and I see I even have a part here that doesn't even make sense. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so we've got rid of that. So now I'm going to come in here. Yeah, this is definitely a problem. So that pentagon right there is, or that quad right there is causing issues. So let's get rid of these. So all I really want is half of the model. Normally I would use a symmetry tag anyway when I'm creating this, and I already went through and created the actual model because it previously had these textures on it. So I'm just going to oops, there we go. To reselect, to deselect, it's Control. To reselect, it's just Shift. So I'm just going to clean these out. And it will make sense why we care about doing one side. Why not just do it all at once? You can. But it just makes life easier, and especially in the process that we want to go through, I found this is a much more effective way. So there we go. Good. That all goes away. Yep. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. And you see, I'm just trying to get it away from the outline, and that's intentional. So that way, when we use our select tool, so I'm going to press and hold this guy, fill selection, Control, remove. Boom, we have a side of the fish. So now I can start working with this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that body tag, but what I want to do is I want to come in here to select, set selection. We're going to call this left body. Now I can come in, I can select the body, deselect the left body, and create a new selection. We'll call that right body. Alright, so now that we have something kind of usable to work with, we can go ahead and start working on this. So I normally like to work on the right side of the body, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to come back into BP UV Edit. Now, if you've already hung out with us this long to the tutorial, then you're sitting here probably saying, okay, this is going to, I really hope this is going to make my life easier. And yes, it really will. Okay, so to start with, normally I really want things to be very specified. So I like to select a couple of points. So I'm going to use the point selection tool, and let's just kind of give it some definition. So I'm going to use, actually, we're going to use the points, not the texture point, the UV point, but the actual points. We're going to do a circle around the eye because that's an important spot. I kind of would like a couple of these points to be selected. What this is doing is creating definition for us. So I'm just selecting some points that I don't, in a side projection, I want to use as a reference. That's all that I'm doing right now. And because we did also kind of use that loop, I'm going to select a loop here. And let's just, for the sake of it, let's go ahead and select a couple points here and maybe here. Now the rest of this can kind of stay as it is. So, so I don't care about too much of the deformation, but we're going to find out how bad the deformation really will turn out to be. And actually, you know what, a couple of, again, what's important here is to note that while I'm doing this, I'm thinking consciously about doing it on the side I want to take a side projection. So if you're specifically doing something on the top, you would want to take a couple of top points. But if I start picking points along the top edge here, it's going to lock it into place and it's going to start getting really ugly. So we don't want any of that. And then maybe, yeah, I don't want too many points in the mouth because that's going to start to get very distorted, and there's a lot of unwrapping to be done up there. So I'm happy with what I have here so far. So now if I come back in, you notice that everything's gone. That's because I just have to reselect the UV editor. So once we come back in here and we look at our mess, what we're going to do is first let's go in here. I'm going to hit S to center things up, and I kind of do want the other side. So it looks like I may have my orientation on the axis off, but that's okay. So I'm going to select the camera. I'm going to literally come into frontal, and boom. We have our model as a frontal projection. Now I can hit E or select the move tool, and I'm going to move it off the palette. So now when I look at this, I say, great, okay, so I have a part of this, and this could be really cool, and I'm ready to paint. Well, you're not yet. So at this point, what you need to do, because we selected these points, we're going to use a pinpoint selection. I don't need a tag because I just have the points selected. That's more important that you have the points selected. I'm going to come in here, select the polygon again, or the UV polygons, and I'm just going to use LSCM and apply. And instantly what we've done is we've started to unwrap the model in a cleaner fashion. Remember those points that we selected? Guess what? They are now in the same place in a frontal projection as they were before. So we've already started to unwrap to make this a usable palette. And it looks like it's going to be a tough thing if we really do want to make kind of a clean join here, because this is a big hump on this Marlin. So I may not be able to get away with that. I may be stuck having that seam up there. Otherwise, I'm going to end up with a lot of distortion, and that can be just as bad as anything else. So we'll see what we end up wanting to do with that. But the beautiful part is that it's done a pretty good job of cleaning things up. But you can see there are still things that are not. So for example, if I come in here and I look at the model, let's go ahead and look here. So you have this little guy. This is the nostril, okay? And you can see that it's not exactly happy. It doesn't look right. So what I want to do is select the polygons here. So I'm going to go back to the polygon tool. I'm going to use that. I'm going to select that one polygon and UI. That's going to grow our polygon selection. Now we have all of those selected. Go back into the UV edit, and if I just get rid of the point selection and hit apply, it still is not going to give us the result we want. So I'm going to hit escape. So what do I really want to do? Here I can do some manual work because it's not a big deal. This is actually going to be a dark part. So I'm going to show you some manual adjustments. So I'm going to use the point tool, select these points, okay. Hit T for scale, and then just scale this down a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and move them in a little bit. We'll scale down a little bit more. So if I press the left button and I roll my scroll, I can change effectively the size of my my radius. Or I can come in here and I can adjust the size of the radius as well. So I'm going to select the point that I care about, move it, say here, move it here. So if this is a detailed part, we'd be doing something different. But for this particular instance, this is going to be acceptable to us. And there's also something else. I'm making the eye as part of this, which is great, but I kind of want this to be a detailed part. It's really important to have a good detailed eye in a fish model. So I'm going to use my polygon selection tool again, and I care about the eye. So let's go ahead and select all this around here. There we go. Okay, so now that we have the eye selected, so what you can also see is I have weight mapped this edge right here, this line around the eye. So that's going to be a real nice hard point. But if I come into here, I can move the eye off of the actual fish, and I'm going to be able now, if I want to, I can come in and say apply for relaxation, and it gives it another level of relaxation. And that is kind of more what I want to do. I want that part to be relaxed. I want it to look really nice, so when I finish painting, it's something that's kind of off, and I can individually paint that part. Okay, good. So that looks good. These are still kind of tight in here, and if we try and relax them, they'll start to kind of clean up, but that's because we don't have the pinpoint selection. So just be aware there's going to be a little bit of back and forth cleanup that you'll go through. So if I come in and I just try and apply, oops, get rid of that, and I just try and apply and clean things up, it will start to kind of converge and make things a little bit nicer. But I'm gonna remove that for the moment, because right now it looks like the other issue that I have is like right in here. So let's see what we can do to kind of clean some of this up. So if you decide to pull, for example, this is on the inside. So if I come in and I select some of these points, by the way, I have these points selected. If I try and move them, you see they don't move in the left screen, but they do in the right. That's because that is the UV point. That's not the actual point editor. It's not the vertex. It's the actual UV point. But if I move that around, all I'm going to do is distort this even worse. So I actually probably want to create a separate cleanup point with this. So we're going to select these polygons in particular. And I apologize if you're not a big 3D space navigator, it can be challenging to figure out what's what and where you need to be. But just bear with me for the moment. So because these underlays here are actually going to turn out to be kind of darkened anyway, we're going to select those. I'm going to move them up here, and then I'm going to go ahead and relax those, because this part I don't care about, that it is perfectly matched. I just want it off to the side, and we're going to clean that up a little bit by doing that. Okay, great. And then let's see here. Do we have problems with these polygons? So if I zoom in a little bit, I can see, oops, that's an overlap. So I can come in here specifically and just do a quick little fix. I'll move this guy, so I have essentially just stored him a touch, and that just is the way it is. So and you'll see some more overlapping going on in here. Again, if you're looking at this model and you want it to be a clean looking UV, especially your ambient occlusion, that's where you're going to see the most problems when you start running into issues, is when you start doing your ambient occlusion and you have overlap UVs. It does not work. It is crap. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of try and unwrap some of these in a little bit cleaner fashion. And if I have to, even though I'm not a big fan of it, I can actually take this part here that is kind of the shell, and we can separate it completely, and it will actually turn out to be just another part. It's an added seam, I understand that, but sometimes adding a seam is better than having a bunch of overlap UVs. That's not a good thing. So I'm going to move him out here, and I'm going to go ahead and relax it. And by relaxing it, it looks better already, except for we do have a point here. Let's go ahead and move him a little bit. There we go. Okay, so nothing's overlapping now on this point. It looks like we still have some overlapping on this area. We'll clean that up. So if I come in here and I look at what point do we got here, that's looking crappy. Okay, so it's just on the outside. I'm physically going to go ahead and just move him. Now it's no longer overlapping. Just like this. let's see here what we got. We have, oh, interesting. So we have the little polygon here. So actually, this is an interesting point. So I accidentally didn't select this and this polygon like I intended on. So I'm going to reselect those. I want them to live back onto this part, and this is a good opportunity to talk through another thing. So if I come in here to snapping, I like to snap the points. You can snap edges if you like, but I select the point. Radius of 8 is really fine. I'm going to go ahead and use my point editor again. I'm going to hit move, and it will snap into place. And I'm going to hit move, that'll snap into place. And I'll hit move, and that will snap into place. Now, here's another fun thing. You can go to your customization and select connected. You can drag and drop that onto the desktop. And if I select just one of those polygons and I select connected, it will select everything in that island that is connected. And now I can relax that island again. So now it's starting to come together. It's starting to clean up fairly quickly. It did a good job in the back here of cleaning up those fins. That might be problematic when I'm trying to do the paint, just because these are fairly tall and it's kind of squished them, but distortion is a thing that happens. I'm more interested on the fact that it's flowing as best as it can be in most of these maps, so I'm going to leave that. And then we had a problem here in the mouth, so let's take a quick look at the mouth. So what do we got here? So we've got this area. Aha, so we have all this overlap in here. So this is going to get a little bit interesting. So let's see if I don't do anything here, I just do a relax, it still is going to overlap. So no matter what I'm doing, it seems like it's going to want to overlap. So this is where I'm going to get a little picky, and I'm going to start finding the points that we're interested in. In this particular case, yep, that's a culprit. So we're going to need to kind of readjust these manually a little bit. And that's okay. It's just going to give us kind of a, it's going to be kind of tough for some of the distortion levels, but we can clean some of that up so it is not overlapping. So the minor work is not a big deal. I know someone might be watching this right now and say, no, it's a big deal. And then, relaxing, continually relaxing these points, you can absolutely continue to do that, and that's fine. Let's see, so here at the eye, that I don't like what I see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the point editor again, the vertex. I'm going to select those points, come back in, use the UV points. I'm going to shrink those a little bit. Just enough, and move them just enough so I actually have a little definition there. So that'll be more defined than the actual part is. By doing that, we are creating a very light amount of distortion, but it's good. This is okay. And the rest of this looks like it's unwrapped actually pretty clean. So we're happy. Okay, so we're pretty happy with this. So then we come in, let's grab, let's go back to standard. And for the sake of doing so, let's go ahead and grab some of the fins. Now, actually, let's grab the mouth, because that's a pretty critical spot. So this is where things can also get a little interesting, and it won't match up because we separated. This won't match up terribly clean to the body, but that's okay. This is going to be a very separate component. I might want to split that into two, but let's just see what we get when we do this. So first and foremost, I want to look at the front, and let's go and make sure that we're looking at the parts. So there we go. So front, again, S will kind of square you up, and then I come back into BP UV edit. We're going to select these parts. So the problem is that now if I do a frontal, this is all going to be really flat. But for the sake of doing this, let's go ahead and do it. So say frontal, and you get what you see. I'm going to move this out of the way. Now, if I come in and just say relax. This is what we end up with. So why is this a problem? Well, technically it has relaxed our item. It has given us a little bit of definition here. It's not the end of the world, but it's not great either. So instead what I'd rather do this. So again, I want to give it some definition. So let's define what we want to relax or what we don't want to relax. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and use that as, let's just use a couple of these points. So let's use those. And maybe we'll use the side of the mouth as a reference. And this is where we can start playing with things too. So this is actually kind of a fun thing. So let's go ahead and select those points, and then maybe we'll select a couple in here. So what's going to happen? So first and foremost, let's go ahead and look at this part. So we're going to re-frontal this. So here we go, projection frontal. Now I've changed the orientation a little bit. I'm going to move it off to the side. So now if I come in and I say relax, remember we set those points. If we set the pinpoint selection and I say relax, it's going to be better. But what's wrong with this? This is perfect, right? No, look at this. This is short, while the mouth should be equidistant. Actually, it should be much longer in the bottom, but this should grow quite a bit more. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go ahead and deselect. So using the selection tool, we're going to deselect these points. And I'm actually going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and actually do this. We're going to physically separate these. So now I can select this point. I can come in and I can relax. And as I relax, it's going to smooth things out in a little bit different fashion. So, okay, so that's great, right? Well, not really. It didn't really get us to where we want to be. So what can I do additionally? I can come in here. I like using frontal projection because it gives me the ability to get a very easy, simple view, more of what I want. So I'm going to go to projection, frontal it. Move it again. Whoops. Move that part again. And now I'm going to relax it. Much better. Much better. Now this is a usable part in the way it's mapped. So that's good. Let's go ahead and look at the bottom. Let's do something similar to the bottom. Now remember, what we're doing is we're seeing through this part, right? So if I come into lines, we're looking through this part, and we kind of want to find an optimal map. So I like this view right here. We'll go ahead and do another projection of frontal. We'll move it. Again, if I just leave this part, I could say, oh, this is great, but I actually have a lot of overlapping bits and pieces all over the place. There's a lot of undercuts involved in this model. So if I now smooth it out, boom, we're happy. This is looking great. If I really care about joining these, I'm going to show you how to do it, but I really like the way this looks as it is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and kind of squish that down a little bit. I like how this is all unwrapped itself. I'm really happy with all the parts here. So I'm probably not going to go beyond this path. But let's say I do care about it, and I want these parts to be joined together because I don't like that seam right there. Okay, we can do that. So what do? Come into our points editor. I'm going to use my selection tool. I'm going to make let's shrink that down a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and select all the outside points. I can be sloppy here, it's okay. What you're looking for are the perimeter points here. The points that should be joined. Great, they're selected. Now what do? I hit a magic button, right? That is correct. So UV commands. You have this cool thing called UV terrace. Boom. Once we've done the terrace, they're cleaned up. Now that we have all of this kind of arranged, so this is the one problem. So now we've distorted those points. I can come in and I can kind of select some of these points again, and we can kind of define what we want to hold in place, what we haven't manipulated. It's the important part is what already exists, right? Let's look at a couple points here. Yeah, let's leave that alone. And now if I come in and I select everything connected, and now I apply a relaxation, it's now warped the mouth so that we have a clean seam. It's taken into consideration all the points that we've put into place, and it's given us a much nicer layout. So I think I will live with this actually. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so that's actually kind of mapping fairly correctly, and I'm happy with it because it does kind of clean things up. This is a tricky part in general, where I have kind of the tongue and all the undercuts. It's going to be a tricky one for the paint, but for the UV, this, I think we're in good shape, sir. So I'm going to leave this. I'm going to shrink it. So T, shrink it down, move it to the side. So that's one full part. Great. And the more I look at this, the more I realize that I really don't want this to be separate. So let's see if we can't kind of manipulate this a little bit to kind of bring it back. It's going to be kind of tough. So this is where I like to use the point editor more than anything. So I'm going to use the points, the UV points. We're going to select these points. It's important you select all of them. And then we're going to go ahead and move it around and boom, put it into place. So what I can do here is I can just slightly shrink this part. Okay. And more over than not, and actually I'm going to go ahead and even be so bold to pull it out a little bit so it's not physically touching. Well, it looks like there's a couple of spots here. So let's go ahead and pull that away. Touch. Okay, so now it's not physically touching, but it's close in areas. And this is the one big problem child that we really didn't like. So we're going to go ahead and shrink him. Now, what I care about is that these points in here that are surrounding are connected. That's the whole point of this exercise, is you want those to be connected. So if I just go in there and do the UV terrace, they're connected now. What have we done though? We have slightly altered that UV map. So it's distorted a little bit now. And that's actually probably okay. In fact, at this point, I'm kind of thinking that, oh my. So actually at some point I must have grabbed the eye. We'll fix that in a sec. So I'm kind of thinking, now that that's all cleaned up, I'm curious, if we come in here and we don't use any of the points that we use and we relax it, this is what we end up with. Disproportioned, ripped all over the place, and it's regenerated back to some of the bad areas. So this is why we do all of these points and mapped areas to try and keep them clean and nice. But no matter what we do here, if we want this connected, physically it's going to be pushing out and above. Because it's an organic part, we're okay here, but it's tough, because once we relax that, that's what it wants to go back to. So I'm going to leave it distorted. I would rather that, and I'm going to manually move him closer. Do the same thing with him. Move him closer. Same thing here. Move him closer. Because we want a little separation there. Okay, great. So that's good. Let's go ahead and fix the eye, because that was like a little disaster. So we'll select that, and this is where that relaxation is always really helpful. So we're back to it. So now we have one side of the body, we have the mouth. We just have to do the other side of the body and the fins, but the more challenging part is definitely doing the rest of the body. So let's just say, for example, because this is how I like to build my my models anyway. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get rid of the left body. So if I come into selection, select polygons, I actually really don't want anything to do with that, so that goes away. Pro tip, by the way, anytime you do that, go to your point selection, Control A, you're going to right click and go to optimize. That way you don't have all kinds of floating vertices that are just not doing anything for you. So I'm also going to duplicate the model. Actually, no, I'm not. We don't need to do that. So what we'll do here instead, because this will actually make our life a little bit easier for later. So let's go in here and let's go ahead and grab the other side of the body. So select. But it works better if we get the correct side of the body. So I'm going to go ahead and invert and delete and point editor and optimize. So now what I've done is I basically have gotten rid of everything but that side of the body. And so to fix that, we're going to go ahead to character, mirror tool, select it, and we can delete the part that we just had. Now, whenever you do a mirror selection, by the way, when you go into your point and you select them, the normals are going to be reversed. Also, if you're dealing with a part that has any kind of access to it, you're going to want to make sure to unfreeze and re-access some of those points, because it will do a kind of a funny manipulation there on the math. So go in here, delete all these, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a new tag, and we're going to call this, oops, not that, sorry. We're going to set selection and call this left body again. And we can actually delete left body over here. So here's a unique situation where we've duplicated the body. We're ready to go ahead and put that other body on the other side. But what happens? It just gives me that piece. Where's the rest of my parts? That's because it's a completely separate UV map. I select the other UV map and boom, it gives us all the other parts we worked with. So we're going to just go ahead and turn this into an object. Select children, connect and delete. At the same time, let's go ahead and do this the right way. Control A, optimize. Okay, so now we have no non-manifolded parts. Deselect, we're going to left body. So this is basically the mirror of what we just did on the other body. So now I'm going to move that part, and you see the other part still stays. And I'm going to go to mirror vertical. So you have these cool tools to play with as well. And the more I'm looking at this, yeah, there's just no way I'm going to make a really clean seam. So I'm going to leave this. I'm okay with the unwrap that we have, but maybe I want to, if I'm using Photoshop or something, I might want to have a reference point that's actually connected. So now if I'm just going to create a mask, I can just straight up and away we go. Okay, so the body's done. Great. So now we're going to come in here and we're going to run with the fins. So first and foremost, I'm going to save my file. It's been a while since I've saved it. So yes, I would like to save that. Let's go to fins. We're going to select and start just with, we'll just start with the side fins here. I'm going to go to my side view, remove, only selected when visible, so I can get rid. So control and move over and get rid of all those parts. And I'm going to work with one, and we're going to duplicate it probably just the same. So we have one fin, and this is an obvious part that maybe doing a overhead projection will help us. So BP edit, select, projection, frontal. We're going to move. And what I want to do from here, I'm going to go ahead and use my live selection, but I'm going to also make sure that I have only the visible items selected, because all we really want, actually let's use the right tool. So the nice thing is when you use the polygon selection tool, you have other tools like the loop and whatnot to be able to function. It just makes life easier for you. So I'm going to go ahead and select these parts. So I don't want to get that edge because we're going to relax that. I just want to capture the bottom of the fin. And then we're going to go in here to select geometry, fill selection, select that guy, and come back into the UV part. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see what we can do here. We're gonna remove this first out of the way. Great. So if I come in and I select the top side and I tell it to just go ahead and relax it, that's taken the front edge and the back edge and it's smoothed it out for us. That looks good. So we're going to select this. Remember, we're at the bottom, so we have to flip, at least mirror the UV flip. I'm going to rotate, set him kind of in place. Yeah, let's do something like that. Okay, now it's going to get a little funny on us, but we're going to go ahead and do the same thing where we're going to join those edges, and we're going to try and see if we can get lucky enough to make this all kind of join together. Now remember the tip, I don't really want to join the tips because that's kind of be generally where that unfold will be. So UV terrace it. Now it looks terrible, and that's okay. So we're going to select. Remember, we don't have a pinpoint selection here. We're just going to relax it because this part doesn't matter as much that I have a good reference. So we've relaxed and we have no overlapping parts, and you can see where that split is in the seam, and it's a clean part. I'm actually pretty happy with this, except I do want to join that together. So let's go ahead and join that, and I'm okay with the seam there. Am I okay with that? Yeah, that's gonna get really distorted, but let's go ahead and just connect it. So just to show you, because it's important while we're going through this, if I select these 2 points and say UV terrace, it does nothing. It's really important. It does nothing because they're not connected. You can only UV terrace the points that are selected within that particular geometry. So one more time, I'm going to relax it, and we're much better relaxed. Looks like I'm happy with the points and how they've all kind of come out. We'll push that off to the side. And we're gonna actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll go ahead and mirror that in just a sec, but let's first go ahead and get this. Aha. So let me go ahead and select the polygons. I'm for a second gonna come actually back up here. UV or UL, we'll select him. Select. And there we go. So we have our little antennas, I like to call them, on our Marlin. So if we come in here, and let's just say that I care about a little bit of definition for the seam. So let's do something like that. I'm going to do a side view, or come in projection, frontal, and relax. Oops. Yeah, let's use our pinpoint for this. We'll relax. So you see how ugly that has become on us? That's because we don't really have the definition yet for it. So let's stick with the frontal to start with. Okay. So, oops, I actually want to grab the other part here. So I've selected those polygons. We're going to move that out of the way. And for the sake of doing so, we'll select connected. We'll move this. So remember, if you're on the back side, you always go right-click UV Tools, Mirror U or V. In this case, I'll do V. And I'll come in and reconnect. And I'll rotate. And we'll clean this up so that it has its seam joint. Now, one thing you might notice is that I don't use the lines for seams. That's because I've had so many issues in the past. I mean, to a point where I refuse to use it. It's that obnoxious to me. So that's why I go this path. If you are a seam person, there are other ways to do this. We'll apply that, and voila, it has cleanly unwrapped this part for us in a nice, neat fashion. And I'm good with that. Shrink that, move it off to the side. So we have both of the fins and our little antenna here. Let's go ahead and shrink that because it is kind of big. And I'll talk you through how this is all going to go here in just a minute. So come back in. We'll do this real quick. because we only care about being quick about this part. So we'll do that. We're going to go ahead in here. We're going to select, fill selection, bada boom, bada bing. We're going to duplicate that file, select invert, delete. Point selection we're going to clean up. Come in here. We'll call these, we'll do another tag and just call them fins, just so we have that in there. And from here, you remember this drill, character, mirror. Mirror. There it is. Delete the original one. If I come into the original file, I want to go ahead and get rid, of these parts. So I'll select those. Fill selection, select, delete, optimize those points. And remember, it's going to reverse the normals, so we're going to reverse the normals again, put it back into play, select, connect and delete. Now when we come back in here to our BP UV edit, we have our parts neatly overlaid, just like last time. So we split those off. So now we're down to doing the fin. And this is definitely going to be one that doesn't need to be a perfectly wrapped around part. In fact, it's a fairly rough seam at the front. But what we are going to do is end up making some normal maps, so I may make some adjustments when it's all said and done. So I'll go ahead and select that fin, and as we already have it kind of set in place here. But let's go ahead and see. So actually, this is probably the only thing that it cleanly in the cubic unmapping properly dealt with. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do this, relax it, and you see it barely moved at all. So I'm happy with that. Normally, you'd want to go ahead and stick it on the model and maybe readjust. We could do that, but I don't really want to. I want the fin to be separate, because that's going to be an area I'm going to spend a lot of time working on. It has a lot of detail. It's going to look really pretty when it's all said and done. So we'll just kind of set them up here. And then we'll do the same thing here. We're going to come in. Yeah, it's easier if I actually use the tags. Select that. I'll deselect this side, because I again don't care about that side. So these actually, because they're not connected, we can get away with doing these all at once. Could have done the full size fin too. Sorry, that kind of, for those of you that are big into, clean, quick workflows, sorry, I'm hurting your jive right now. Okay, there we go. We've selected that. Let's go ahead and, you know what? Yeah, sorry guys. For cleanliness, I am going to go ahead and do them all at once. Alright, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And you might end up with an occasional polygon that, you just didn't want. We'll kind of talk through what we would do on those. And let's go and get rid of these, and we will go ahead and redo this guy, just for the sake of redoing it, so we can do it all in one UV map. And we don't care, actually, about any of those. So we'll get rid of all of these. There we go. Okay. So now, if I come in, we're going to go frontal again, projection, frontal. And for this, I don't need definition, because they're all going to end up where they're going to end up. So we're going to move this off to the side. We're going to go ahead straight to relax. And it shouldn't do much. As you see, all it really did, actually, I'll back that up for a second. So if we zoom in here and we relax, all it did was clean up some of these points. It still has, looks like that's an overlap. So let's go ahead and clear that. It's that's why it's important to check to make sure you don't have overlaps, because you'll regret it later. If you do your ambient occlusion map, you'll especially notice it there. So we'll go ahead and make sure those aren't overlapping. Make sure that those are not overlapping. Much better. Again, we have the ability to distort this map without really hurting ourselves. It's kind of a big deal when you're dealing with a map that you really don't want to distort. Okay, not overlapping. I'm happy with that. How are we doing here? No. Let's go ahead and bring him out to away. Bring him back. Better, better, better. Good, good, good. I did make some of these edges pretty tight on the model. And, oh, that's interesting. So here's a good example. So I accidentally grabbed a couple points I didn't mean to. So I come in and look. This should be on the wrong side of the model. And it is. It's on the left side. So I don't need those. I'm going to go to UV Tools. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that is right. And Clear UV. They're gone. Just like that. Cool. So this is all cleanly unmapped. We just need now to go ahead and organize it in a fashion so that it's kind of, you know, workable. So let's do that. Let's do that. Oops. Move these. Let's do sure. Keep the fins kind of generally close together. And let's do that. Now we have the fins organized, and all you see here is all the junk from the rest of the fins. So we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. One last time. Okie doke. So, duplicate that. We're going to take him. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me go in. Because of the nature of this, we're going to select the fins. Nah, we'll go ahead and leave that be. So this is absolutely why you really want to use the symmetry tool whenever you're making a model in general. I'm going to go in here and just delete the polygons for the fins because we're actually going to be, you know, replacing them. But if you use the symmetry tool, life would have been easier. So again, for those that are watching this that have suffered to this point, I first off appreciate it, and I also hope that you guys are learning a couple of these lessons. I already know them, and I am deeply, deeply apologetic. And I'm just making you have to watch me spend a little bit more time here in the video. That's what we're going for. I promise that's not the case. Okay. Delete that. Let's go ahead and hide this. Delete. Delete. Da, 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 da. Pretty happy here. Okay. I'm going to do one more thing. We're going to make life easier. Let's just do this. We're going to come in here. Quick workflow time. All right, we're just going to select the fins. We're going to delete them. We're going to optimize. We can do that because we've done this already. Which means I am going to have to redo a little bit of work. It's okay. Oops. Let me make sure that I capture all the fin parts that I want. Yep. And we'll fill that selection. Okay, bada boom, bada bang. There we go. So after all that pain and hassle, which I do apologize about, we're going to set that selection for the fins again. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to invert and delete everything else. Optimize. Then we're going to go back into our mirror tool. Mirror. That can go away. So remember what we got to do for the mirror. Oh, good point. So that can't go away. That is our fin now. So if I hide these, our fin, this has to come back. So we're going to do that. Okay. So we're going to come in here to the Marlin. Remember, we have to reverse those normals. Set it in place. Select children. Connect and delete. Optimize. And let's go back to the fins. Select the fins. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of cleanup work here because what we've done is we've moved things around. So what do we want to do? Well, for one, we'll want to go ahead and let's go ahead into this tool again, and we're going to remove that piece so we can take that part of the fin. Oops. Let's do that. Move that part of the fin out of the way. In fact, from right to left, let's just go ahead and do that. That's easy enough. Again, for Photoshop people or any kind of paint program people, it's always nice to have things kind of in a really neat, clean hierarchy. Rotate that 90 degrees. What's a little action? Let's see here. No, I'm actually okay with that. We're good here. So select, relocate to the back, and we'll probably reposition these another time as well. So come in here. So in my case, I want these to be mirrored. It's going to save me a ton of time and hassle. If you want to actually create a unique fin right and left, which this is organic, so that makes complete sense, you would want to go ahead and then separate these guys. I'm not going to do that. I want these to be the same. This is how I want them structured. So we'll just come back in like we did last time. We'll kind of clean these up. There. So we have basically duplicate overlaying UVs. That's what we have. That will not hurt us, however. Oh, you know what? That will hurt us when we do our ambient occlusion still. So we may be stuck having to fix this. Yeah. Okay. Well, tell you what, for this lesson, we're not going to get into there, spend the next 10 minutes redoing it. So let's go ahead and let's wrap this guy up. So we'll go ahead and set him here. So you want to always optimize the use of how you're going to actually, set your maps and your islands and all that anyways. So you can do some of this. Yeah, these guys I kind of like. I think I want to flip them. Let's go ahead and do that. It's a little big. There we go. Better. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and rotate you, say 30 degrees. Yeah, that's better. And the reason I'm doing that there is so I can do this. Actually, minus 30. There we go. And now we have a cleaner map. Better. Okay. So now we can take all these, relocate them, So remember, maximum use of space is really important. It's always your biggest object that you need to be most worried about. So we're going to do something like this. That works. So I guess if we wanted, it probably does make sense. Because we can go ahead and here, and I don't really want to have an added seam, but this is a very dark part here. So it's actually not going to hurt us too much. So I am cheating this for the sake of quality of the texture. I'm going to go ahead and move these parts. We're going to go ahead and transform. There we go. So part of my build now is off the map. It's off the grid, guys. That is intentional. Okay. Great. So the sizing of that looks good. So let's go ahead and relocate these guys. Select, select, select. Move you up. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. There we go. Yeah, something like that. Select connected and bring it back. So now we've effectively used way more positive space on the maps. Our islands are, you know, not too far apart, so we have room for more if we wanted. We can increase resolution on some of these parts. The mouth may end up getting increased, but now what I would do, first and foremost, we're going to save. And I'm probably, as I mentioned, going to go ahead and change these out. In fact, I'm going to do that and pause you guys. Okay, so that did take a couple minutes. Not a big deal. Sorry about the the mix-up there. I feel it's important to make sure that it's correct, though, because, like I said, when we do ambient occlusion, if you have two layers baked on top of each other, it will be a problem. What I'll have to do is I will take one side of the image, and I'll go ahead and, you know, just plaster it on onto the correct location for where this guy is at. So we're going to do that. Readjust so that he kind of lives in a happy place here. And if it's possible, I'll even do this. No, I think it's going to be best to leave this guy up here. I just want to minimize the amount of work that I have to do later on to clean things up within the paint program. So let's bring him down here. Looks like that's a good spot for it to live. Great. So what we've done is we've adjusted the islands ourselves. We've learned how to UV map the item as a whole, how to create a tag, using Cinema 4D, how to create selection points, how to set pinpoints to better manipulate the model so that we can absolutely create a true proper UV map. So right now we have non-overlapping UV maps. This is a low a low polygon model that will end up getting textured and will turn out to be really attractive. So if I come in here now, always save your model. I'm going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and actually, so this is one last step that I like to use when you're talking about going in. So first off, I like to set the UV edges in place. Edge or boundary is okay. Either way, it's kind of what you're trying to deal with. But a subdivision level of 2, sure, that sounds good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to save this one more time. Now I'm going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and make this editable. And we're going to export as an FBX. Now remember, this is only to show you right here how this file will work when I go into a paint program, for example. And then I promise, guys, I will take the rest of your day, I will not take the rest of your day up, and you can all relax. So my organic painting program of choice is Substance Painter. It's just a great working program. GP issues. It's a great working program. It gives me everything that I need. It's easy to let's go ahead and drag and drop him in. It's easy to export the meshes, to bake everything, and I've just always been really happy about it. So all I have to do is import it at this point, and look what we got. So here we go. This is going to be the end of this video, but what I wanted to get across is that I will send out another one that will show the actual painting process of creating this model, so you can understand better how we're doing that. But we have a clean model set up here. You know, if I drop and drag, for example, carbon fiber on it, just because I can, it has a real nice clean effect, but you can see where the seams are. You can walk around and see if you're happy with everything. Actually, let's do something like that. Yeah, that's better, because it's more of a UV understanding. But this is what we've created. So in the time that we've spent working on this model, we've been able to basically make it drop in texture capable. So now all we have to do is create the actual texture for the model. If you're using a UV, or I'm sorry, an image, there are ways of going about that too. So in fact, I'll show you that real fast, and then I will bug out and let you guys do your thing, because this is a question I do get every now and then. Hey, what if I just want to plaster this on there? So let's go ahead here. So this is the original file. So I'm going to go ahead and drop and drag this in. And if I show you, this is the file that I use, that I, basically it's a real image that I've removed the fin. So I think the biggest concern that people end up with, actually, I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go back in here. Oops. Let's just close him. No. And we'll reopen this guy. So, so if I come in, I'm sorry, let's pull that back in real fast. Don't need reflection, and let's just drop and drag. So obviously when we just drop and drag it, it's not correct at all. That's okay. That's kind of what we expect. But what we can do is we can come into BPUV edit. And this is where the program really is cool. I mean, the things you can do with it are actually really great. And you guys are seeing a mixture of a whole bunch of things that we have here. So texture, blue Marlin, there we go. So if you look at this, if I wanted to actually like manipulate this onto the body, that would take a little while. There's a lot of tweaking, pulling, and adjusting going on there. You can do it though. You can grab individual areas and make that work. But even more simple is, here's a technique that I've used in the past. I've done this. I'll do this. Oops, let's make this oriented correctly. There we go. We got that. I'll come into the editor, no scaling, so we maximize that image, shrink it down a little bit so that it kind of more matches. Okay. So now I can take this guy, I can make him an X-ray model, kind of slide this generally into place until we're a little bit happier. And yes, this is the image, I mean, you can see in the model, this is the image I used when I built the model initially. So, it's all based off of this right here. I did make some adjustment, obviously, to some of the areas. You can see the eyes are now kind of readjusted a little bit. The bill is kind of more down. But, ultimately, this is kind of what I use. So, why did I just do that? That's probably what you're asking. So I did that so that way I can sit here come into this model, drag and drop texture onto it, select that texture, say I want it flat, probably don't even need to do that. I can come into fit to object. Oops, I'm sorry. I want to fit to region. I want to fit to region. When I do that, I can drag at the top of this box all the way down to the box that now mimics. Let it go, hide, oh no. Yeah, so that I see my fault here. So should be able to just rotate that 180 degrees and get an end result. There we go. And just like that, we've taken our image and placed it onto this as a UV map. Now, it's not perfect. It's actually not great, really, at all. But it does give us a, if we're doing a really quick animation and you want a Marlin, for example, there you go. Okay, so I do that. Thanks for the help on that, Jason. How the heck do I actually apply that? Because what happens is when I create a rig on here, I create the bones and it starts moving itself. That flat image projection doesn't work. So what if I just want to turn it actually into, and yes, the fins are not done correctly. That's okay. I have not actually gotten it to, properly UV map itself. Well, this is where Cinema 4D does do pretty good. So you have your bake object option, and let's just, for sake of doing, say 4096. I know the image is not terribly high resolution, so this is actually probably going to be a little tough on it. So, and you're seeing all the models that I have. I do create a lot of models, by the way, guys. You probably already know that. But I do enjoy making these models and selling them for you guys to also enjoy. Alright, so Marlin. We're going to go in and we'll just create that texture there. So what am I going to do? Ambient occlusion, keep UVs. And a single texture, it is one part, so I'm not worried. And I'll do a pixel. Pixel border is your island border, by the way. And we'll bake. I'm going to pause and come back as soon as this is done. Okay, and we're finally coming to an end. So I want to encourage one thing to you as well. What I've done here is this is essentially not a subdivided model at the moment. It is, it's just a low poly. I always encourage, if you're going to do this tactic that I'm just showing you now, you want to do it with a subdivision. Otherwise, when you actually apply your NURB, as we're doing right now, and I'll show you what we've actually come up with. And let's go ahead and make this no scaling. So the difference is how it's going to actually wrap around different areas. So this is also the something I want to show you is between standard. I've actually never used standard for anything. Boundary is okay with organic items. Edge is essential when you're working on a like a vehicle or whatnot, but you can see edge here is not terribly happy. Boundary is probably the right answer. So what we've actually done here physically is we've taken, if I come back in here to my folder, which has disappeared on me, let's fix this. So if I come back into the folder with the Marlin, what we'll see is we create an ambient occlusion, and this is a problem that I have with Cinema 4D. It does do some weird things sometimes, and you have to go and you have to clean them up. There's no way around it. So we have some kind of nasty artifact in there, some bad stuff here. This all, by the way, looks better when you subdivide a much higher poly model, because it will actually use that softened surface for what it is that you're going for. But it did do a pretty good primary job of getting us what we want. And then this is our texture. So, I mean, you can see that it's actually stretching itself because it's a flat texture, and the UV map has a wrap. It's actually stretching itself. It did a pretty good job though. and it's a clean texture. It's not ideal if you're looking for a perfectly high resolution model. You should really paint it. That would be the best way to go about that. But what if I want to just, have a canvas? Some people like to have a canvas and they just want to work on creating a canvas with the actual model. So we can do that too. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. And we don't need you anymore. So if I want a canvas to be able to paint, so great, I have a texture that gives me my UV map. It shows me where everything's at. But if I want to come in to BP UV edit, I can come in, Control A to select all of the parts. We'll first create a new texture. Go to new texture, and we'll call this Marlin text outline. So in here, it's important that you're cautious about what color you pick. I actually kind of like gray as a background because I do a lot of overlay, and I use After Effects actually to create a lot of textures and whatnot. So, just give you an idea. Boom, this is on another model that I use to kind of create the paint and the layers and whatnot for my Kit Fox. So I like a dark color, okay, and that'll give me the background color. I come into layer, I have this cool feature called Outline Polygons. But before I do that, I want to come into the paintbrush, and I have options here. First on how big of a size I want. I mean, I could, make something really silly like this, come back in, say, under layer, outline polygons, and it's this blob of stuff. So if I don't care about resolution, I really want to know just generally where those polygons are. There we go. I normally like to keep it at about 10, which is the default, by the way, because I normally also like an 8K texture. That's what I always try and go for. And then we're going to go ahead and outline the polygon, and we now have a very clean-ish map. You can go down to 1, but just remember, if you go to 1, actually I'll just show you. So if you go down to a size of 1, you are literally going to be, the nice thing about this is you're actually, you know exactly where the layer. You know exactly where each of the polygons are, because within 1 pixel you have that intersection and connection points. So it's great, but when you're working on a painting program, like even Photoshop, you can start to build up, and it can start to have a really hard time picturing or processing all these really thin, high resolution lines. So I like to make it easier for the viewport, so that I just go normally a little bit higher to that 10 mark. So we'll come back in again, outline. Then all I have to do is save this texture. I like PNGs, and I'll just come in here and save it as the outline. Then I can come in, open my texture, and there it is, guys. So again, quick review from beginning to end. We've started with nothing but a model that didn't have a UV map. We've created the UV coordinates in kind of an ugly fashion. We went back and worked on adjusting using points, using polygons, and cleaned up and relaxed the UVs. We've created selection tags to be able to identify specific areas to create our own islands within C4D. And then when it's all said and done, we piece it together as a single texture. We've exported it, and we are able to import directly into a paint program and have full access to be able to operate and work on the end result. So I hope this video is informative. I know it's been a long long video, an hour and a half now. So if you've stuck with me, you're a trooper. You deserve more than you imagine. In fact, happy to make a note if you have stuck it out to the end of this and say you like the model, you'd maybe like to be able to create your own textures for it. I do a lot of systems for people, for students, for a multitude of different groups. If you have finished this video and you're interested in trying to make your own textures for this, I will offer this model at a very low price for you. You just have to send me a message. So that's about all I have right now. Thanks guys for watching, and as always, happy modeling.